That is correct, Cyril. Hi there, everyone. For the first time in 4 years, Greece has sold bonds in international debt markets. The government raised €3 billion altogether, more than expected. On top of that, there was strong demand and the borrowing cost was lower than expected. In a speech to the nation, this gentleman right here, Prime Minister Antonis Samaras, said it marks a decisive step towards exiting the Greek crisis. Delano de Souza has more.
The first bond sale in 4 years received considerable interest from international investors. Bond yields were at 4.95, well below the expected rate of 5.5%. In an era of low interest rates, investors are looking for high returns.
The five-year bond issue succeeded beyond expectations. This means that the international markets, as of now, express their undisputed confidence to the country's economy, to the country's future, because they invest in this future.
Greece was the first country in the Eurozone to accept a bailout and has so far borrowed €237 billion. The country's debt stands at 175% of its GDP, and while it's currently been given junk status by mainstream ratings agencies, the idea of Greece standing on its own 2 feet after 2016 has begun to look possible. However, experts are warning against complacency.
We have to remain very vigilant permanently. This is no time for complacency, but it is a symbolic illustration of the fact that the Europeans have preserved their own historical construction.
Greece's return to the bond markets illustrate its tough austerity measures appear to be working, although its real economy continues to suffer. Unemployment data released on Thursday dropped to its lowest level in 11 months, yet remained high at 27%. Meanwhile, anti-bailout groups are preparing rallies on Friday during German Chancellor Angela Merkel's official visit. She's seen as the main backer of harsh austerity measures imposed on Greece.
Next up, a new batch of trade figures from China is sparking fresh concern about the world's second biggest economy. Imports to China dropped by more than 11% in March in comparison to the same month last year. At the same time, exports from China fell by almost 7%. It was the second month in a row that exports fell. Both figures are highlighting concerns that China is heading for an economic slowdown and potentially job losses. Now, that weaker than expected data out of China did very little for the mood on Wall Street on Thursday. The indices in the United States took a significant hit on Thursday, and it was the worst day since 2011 for the Nasdaq in particular. It was down more than 3%. The focus was on technology shares and concerns that earnings from technology companies won't be able to live up to expectations, and that is why we saw the tech-heavy Nasdaq index in particular take such a heavy hit. Now, despite the successful Greek bond sale earlier, European shares closed mostly lower, with the FTSE in London being the only outlier there after the Bank of England kept its benchmark interest rate steady at a record low. Let's take a look at some other stories that we're watching for you. Drug maker Roche came into the spotlight on Thursday. A French competition watchdog said it's raided the French offices of Roche and its rival Novartis. The watchdog was acting on allegations the two had been fixing the price of an eye treatment. Separately, researchers have also said that Roche's best-selling flu drug Tamiflu had few beneficial effects. The mobile network operator Vodafone is upping its exposure to the Indian market. The UK-based company is taking full ownership of its Indian unit by buying an 11% stake from a minority partner. The value of the transaction is 89 billion Indian rupees, or around €1 billion. The deal follows a rule change that allowed foreign carriers to take full control of their Indian mobile phone businesses. And François Hollande says he wants to double France's trade with Mexico. The French president is on a 2-day state visit in Latin America's second biggest economy after Brazil, and much of the focus is on business. Franco-Mexican trade is currently worth around €4 billion each year. Mexican officials say that France and Mexico will sign 30 deals in fields like aerospace, energy and education during Hollande's visit. And we're going to finish up business with a French export that a lot of people probably would have liked to do without. This Thursday marks 60 years since the French government announced the implementation of a new sales tax. France became the first country in the world to introduce a value-added tax, also known as VAT. Since then, VAT has spread around the world to more than 150 countries, and now sales taxes stand for around a fifth of all tax receipts in OECD countries. Here in France last year, VAT raised 140 billion euros. Those darn French people, hey? With that, I'm going to send it back to you, Cyril.
All right, Marcus Carlson with the Business News. Thank you very much. We'll